Look, I'm someone that tends to overthink everything. The idea of people just making decisions without problem and then thinking that everybody else should do it is just not realistic. Decision making is really just a skill that some people are good at and some people aren't. And there's nothing wrong with either side. We also live in a world where we're just surrounded by decisions, what to eat, what to wear, which news station to watch. Now, I could be wrong about this, but our ancestors, people from thousands of years ago, they only had a few decisions every day to make. Meanwhile, we have decisions to make every other minute. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think our brain was designed for this level of constant decision making, where the stakes are so high that anything could go wrong if you make the wrong decision. Now, if you share this feeling of making bad decisions, that's actually a good thing because it means you're somebody that actually cares about what they want and cares about making the right choice. This habit to overthink actually comes from just being self-aware, which most people in today's world are not. The reality is most people in our world are on autopilot. They don't really think about the consequences of what they do or how they're living, and they just don't think about these things at all. So what sets people like you and me apart is the ability to overthink. But if you do not learn to manage this, it just becomes self-destruction and you'll ruin your life. There's a point where there's healthy overthinking and you just become paralyzed. And if you spend too long just trying to make the perfect decision, you'll just end up not making any decisions at all, which is way worse than making a decent decision and just changing what you need to change later. The funny thing is that trying to avoid making the wrong choice ends up you making no choice, which is 100% always the wrong choice. And this is where overthinking turns from a good habit to something bad that keeps you stuck in whatever you're trying to do. Now, we've all seen those people that just make decisions effortlessly and just don't second guess themselves and are confident in everything I do. Now, don't get me wrong, I genuinely envy these people for several reasons. First, I don't even understand how you become someone that just makes decisions so effortlessly. And then after you make the decision, they just don't worry about if they made the right decision or the wrong decision or if this other decision would have had a better outcome or anything. But I do have to give these people credit because what they do is not a bad way to navigate life. No matter what we do, we all eventually have to make choices. And the truth is, the world just is going to keep spinning while we're wasting time thinking about what to do. And then you end up doing nothing at all, which is way worse than making a bad decision. At least when you make a decision, you get real feedback and you either make the right decision or you make the wrong one and you gain confidence. You self correct and you go back the right way. And if you fail, you just learn something and then now you know it doesn't work. This feedback loop is way more valuable than the stuff going on inside of our heads when we're overthinking. And that is what is good about these people that are making decisions, just off the top of their head without thinking a second thing about it, is that making the right decision is infinitely more valuable than just thinking about it. And if you're expecting me to tell you not to think before you make decisions, you'd be wrong. Now, I'm not here to tell you to become one of those people that make snap judgment decisions at the snap of your fingers and never make a mistake again. Because there is a way to compromise. There is a way to meet this problem in the middle and be able to make choices without letting it paralyze you. Now, I know this because I've lived through both extremes. I've been through the absolute hell of overthinking every decision because something didn't feel right. But I've also experienced the other side, which is making decisions even when I'm not sure of what's actually right, and then finding out that making decisions shows you more about what you're doing than thinking ever could. Now, I've tried to make perfect decisions about literally everything, from career paths, from friendships that I just analyzed to death, what to say in conversations, when to say it, what opportunities to pursue, whatever. I've overthought everything, just to the point where every decision felt like if I made one wrong move, everything would just collapse, and if I made the right move, everything would be perfect. That is what my thought process can be when I'm making decisions. Now, what I've learned is not to just not think, it's to think more effectively and actually act on what you're thinking about. The key is learning how to use your overthinking productively instead of letting it just keep you stuck from where you're at. For example, I'm still in the process of finding out what I want to do with my life, and there's so many options and there's so many things that I like to do, and so I struggle with making any decision at all. And I get stuck because I want to pick the right thing or the thing that's meant for me or the thing that I'm supposed to do, as if there's like some blueprint that I'm supposed to follow. I'll overthink what medicine to take, as if like I'm going to destroy the future version of myself that could have been if I'd take this wrong medicine, and it ends up ruining my life. Now, I've carried a ton of guilt about making decisions that might not align with what I'm supposed to do, but the thing is, I never really know what I'm supposed to do. Now, I love the idea of the person that goes through life that is able to think about their decisions and act on them 100% of the time than someone who's mastered that balance of thinking and acting. Now, today, I'm glad to say that I've gotten a little bit better at making decisions, and it hasn't happened overnight. It's been a gradual process of learning to work with my overthinking and not against. Okay, so I've pretty much found a way to make decisions easier, but not in a way that makes everything just mindlessly simple. Okay, so I'm not trying to eliminate thinking about decisions. I'm just trying to make thoughtfulness more effective, and that's what I figured out how to do. Now, don't get me wrong, I genuinely actually take pride in thinking deeper than other people do in social situations or career situations, or in skills like personal development, learning to talk, learning to act, things like that. This isn't something that I want to get rid of. I don't want to get rid of the ability to overthink because most people operate on the surface level of thinking, and this gives us, people like us, overthinkers, a major advantage. And I'm grateful to think that people like me and you think more than 99% of the population, and that if we learn to actually balance that with good decision making, we can do whatever we want. But all this overthinking means nothing if you just keep it in your head forever and don't do anything with it. Now, it took a long time to get where I'm at. This wasn't an overnight thing. This wasn't a quick fix. It is a slow process of trial and error, and I'm still learning things every day. But I'm going to give you what I have taken the time to learn. And I'm also going to give you the systems that I have so you can actually think deeply and also live your life. First, we have to come to the idea that there is no perfect decision, okay? And this isn't being negative, it's just true. We will make mistakes and we're going to regret what we do. And that's just part of being human. And so once you accept this, the question becomes, how do you balance your need for thoughtful decisions with taking action? The fear that thinking if you pick the wrong answer, everything is going to go up in smoke and everything's going to be ruined. That's not reality. Most decisions are much more nuanced, and it's not that serious. It's usually not that good or not that bad. It's always just somewhere in the middle. Now, there are 3 steps you can take to make your life significantly easier when it comes to this. Now, these aren't abstract concepts, they're actual tools and skills that you can start practicing today. Now, this has changed everything about how I approach decisions, from the most important things that I need to do and from just like little choices I make during the day. So, a few months ago, I had to come to the crucial realization that I needed to start making decisions quicker and stop overthinking everything. One, because I need to act faster, and two, because I waste energy overthinking everything. I can't worry about every decision forever, looking at every possibility. I needed to create an actual plan, a strategy for what to do when I found myself in this state. After reading several books and reflecting over trial and error, I've distilled everything down into a few skills that actually work. Okay, these aren't vague concepts or motivational quotes. These are tangible skills that you can either do or not do. You can either take action on them or not take action on them. There's no middle ground here. You either do it or you don't. Now, here's the major breakthrough that I had. When I didn't know what to do, I always started to pick what was easiest to do. Now, I know this might sound overly simplistic, but this is literally life changing when you're somebody that overcomplicates everything. So instead of trying to calculate what is the best decision, or what is the most logical, just do what is the easiest. That's what I do. I ask myself what is the easiest and what is going to take the least amount of time or effort. So for hard decisions, or decisions that are going to take a lot of effort, I immediately choose the easier path, while knowing that if I do make the wrong choice, I can just correct later and keep going. And the thing is, 9 times out of 10, the easiest decision is usually the best decision. Now, people argue this because it just doesn't sound right. People think that the hard decision should be the best decision, but is that really how you'd want it to be? No. Just take advantage of the fact that the easy decision is usually the right decision. And ever since I started picking the decisions that were the easiest, it becomes so clear of what to do. Because before that you're overwhelmed by every choice, trying to make the right choice. Like I said earlier, like thinking every choice is life threatening or it's going to make your life perfect. And it's so much easier when you can just pick what is easiest. And here's what I learned. Both decisions are usually going to suck a little bit. The harder one will probably suck a little bit more. Actually, that's not true. There's no way to know. But the only thing I do know is that both decisions are going to suck a little bit, and they're both going to have good things that come with each decision. Now, you'll never know what the opposite decision is that you don't make, because that's just how it works. Now, you can literally do this wherever you are right now. If you have a decision you've been thinking about, literally just do what is easiest. Not what you feel like you should do, but what is actually easiest to do, what requires the least amount of energy. It doesn't matter if you're hearing this at home or at work or you're on your phone. You can use this decision making skill in real time right now. So that's it. Just weigh out the easiest thing to do. It takes a few seconds. That's all. Now, once you've identified the easiest decision, it sets you up next for what is actually feeling which decision feels most natural to you. This isn't some woo woo, martyr manifestation stuff. This is literally just listening to your gut instinct. That's all this is. That's all I'm trying to explain. Okay, your gut decision is a subconscious decision, and the subconscious remembers everything that we have been through, and it takes all that information into every decision, and 9 times out of 10, that's why listening to your gut is always the right decision. Or some people would say that listening to your gut goes a little deeper than that and it's a little more spiritual, but that's not the point of this. But here's the thing, you can't be overthinking and be able to listen to your gut at the same time. There's just the overthinking is going to drown it out every time. It's really hard to settle down and calm down and actually be at a level where you can hear your gut. Now the thing is, this process of listening to your gut and following the decision that is the easiest literally takes about 30 seconds, and that is far better than the hours and days you'll spend overthinking. Okay, there's a quote I like. It says, "The mind is not capable of knowing all the moves ahead, so it can't possibly know how to realize the goal." And that's the thing, it's basically saying that the mind, overthinking, has no idea what's going to happen. It can't possibly know the right decision to make, but your subconscious does. Your gut instinct does know. How do we know? I don't know. But you've always heard those stories about how someone should have listened to their gut and they didn't, and it went wrong. Now, there are people in business and in life that try to plan out every little thing and predict exactly how things are going to unfold, from football coaches to entrepreneurs, but it just never works that way. Your mind simply does not know the future, and it can't account for everything that's going to happen. At the same time, the follow your heart crowd, listen to your gut crowd, usually ignores practical, pragmatic, common information that actually matters. Okay, so you can't just manifest your way through life without considering the real world constraints. Okay, that's just where we live. But I'm poking at both sides here because the truth is somewhere in the middle of logic and intuition. And when you combine these two, you're letting your mind do its thing and you're letting your gut do its thing, and so they're not conflicting with each other. And you're able to make decisions based off the best information that you have versus overthinking it. Now, ever since I've started making decisions like this, I will say it's been one of the biggest changes in my life. Okay, this has changed, everything from what shoes to wear to what career path to take. I'm not paralyzed trying to think about the right thing to do. Now, don't get me wrong, of course I had my doubts at first, because how am I supposed to feel or listen to my gut for the right answer? Okay, it almost sounds like nonsense, and a lot of people will push it off as nonsense. But the alternative is, and what I've done my entire life, is contemplate for days and then make a snap judgment decision right at the last minute. And all that overthinking just went to waste because you didn't even use it properly. Because you make a snap decision, or I make a snap decision. And now you're supposed to just feel what is the right choice. You're supposed to listen to your gut and find out what's right. Now, at first, this sounds like the manifestation nonsense that I talked about earlier. I mean, a lot of times it's hard to even know what you're feeling or how to slow down enough to feel anything clear. But, anyways, I decided to try myself. because what I had been doing clearly wasn't working. Okay, the alternative couldn't have been that bad if what I was doing was not working. And it's safe to say that I've been making huge mistakes not picking what is most natural to me and what my subconscious or gut wants to do versus what makes the most sense. And usually I would just pick the decision that I thought other people would like the most because that's just what I did. So basically, what this means is just picking out to what's intuitive to you as a person, what feels the most natural to you. It's not mystical, it's not complicated. It's just doing what you actually want to do as a person. And it's easy to do this because all you do is just give the decision enough time and space to think clearly about it for the right answer to pop up, and it will. Over time, the right answer will pop up. And this doesn't mean just thinking forever, it just means not worrying for a little bit just to give your brain a little bit of space to think of something. So instead of forcing an immediate answer or trying to analyze everything, you're choosing a middle ground. You're giving your mind enough space to process what's going on without actually having to decide right now. The thing is here that your gut or your intuition or your subconscious needs time to come to the surface. It's not going to happen instantly. Some decisions, it won't come to the surface at all, and you'll just have to go with what makes the most sense. Or, like I said earlier, what is the easiest? But when you give yourself enough space, whether it's a day or a week or a month, depending on the situation, the right choice usually comes to surface. Now, this works because you're thinking thoroughly and you're not just rushing blindly forward, but you're not staying stuck forever. So you're creating an environment where good decisions can just happen. Now, here are some things to do that I do to find my gut instinct or my subconscious or the decision that my subconscious wants. Now, again, this sounds a little woo woo and manifestation martyry, but whatever. Anyways, what I'll do is I'll just take both scenarios, decision one and decision two, and I'll just imagine the end scenario. That's it. And I'll just pay attention to how I actually feel and pay attention to what my body's response is. Because if I feel a tightness or a tension or a feeling I don't like, it's probably not the decision you need to make. Even if it looks good on paper, but if you follow this process and it doesn't feel right, then it's not going to go well. But if you do this process and you feel, a sense of lightness or excitement or relief, then that's probably the decision you need to be making. Even if it doesn't make sense logically. And that's the part that trips most people up. because sometimes the choice that feels right just completely defies what most people think you should do and what you should do and what looks the best on paper. Because your intuition is processing information that you've collected throughout all your life and some other stuff that we won't get into. Now, the thing is, this works for everything. This works for little decisions, big decisions, whether you're choosing what to eat for lunch or you're deciding what to do for your career. Now, the only time this doesn't work is if you have to make a snap judgment decision, which at that point you can just do what's easiest. Now, does this mean I'll always make the right choices? No. But here's the thing, no one even knows what the right choice is. And the idea that we can pick the right choice just leaves us overthinking. Now, here's the thing, we can't always just turn our minds off to listen to our intuition. It's just really not how we were brought up in today's world. We've been conditioned to overthink everything, to justify every choice with logic, and that our gut instinct is unscientific. So, modern school and just modern society will tell you to be analytical rather than a human being that feels. And here's the last thing is that if you have to convince yourself to do something, it's probably not the right choice. Okay? And okay, so here's the last thing. And this is one of the most reliable things I've found, uh, you know, but anything that I've truly ever wanted to do, I never had to convince myself to do. And a lot of the times, when I did do something that I had to convince myself to do, it never turned out well. Good decisions usually feel right from the jump, even if they are scary. There's a difference. They feel right, but it might be scary, rather than something that's just completely not something you should do. And if you're being analytical and going against your gut reaction, you're literally just going against your better judgment. Even if something does make sense on paper, okay, it doesn't make sense if you have to talk yourself into it. For example, I started getting leads from my mom's business, and I thought what I needed to do was focus on cold calling. I didn't actually want to, but I thought it'd be the best because some time ago I'd purchased a real estate course, and in that course it goes through cold calling. And so I thought that would make the most sense. It sounded the easiest, but for me, that just wasn't true. I like cold email. Okay, I'm not someone that you'll find on the phone. And so I was trying to convince myself to be on the phone when I obviously get excited about cold email. Now, I've been cold emailing since then, and I've gotten us over 3 jobs from email, plus a lot of more leads that we didn't close. But yeah. But here's the difference cold calling actually makes me tired and drains me, while cold emailing gives me energy. Obviously, I get tired when I still do this for long periods of time, but emailing genuinely makes me excited versus cold calling, which is just terrifying and terrible. Now, like I said earlier, it's easier for us to think that the wrong choice is going to destroy our life and that the right choice is going to make our life 100% better. Everything will be perfect. You'll get rich, all from one decision. And it's black and white thinking, and that's what makes decision making so hard. But like I said earlier, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. It's never too far off from what you might expect. Anything you choose is just going to be average or pretty okay. Most decisions don't really alter our long term being, no matter how significant we think it is. Obviously, there are a few anomalies to this, but we're not going to get into that. 99% of the time, decisions don't actually alter our well being, no matter how important we think it is. Every choice is going to be okay, and at the same time, it's going to be not okay. What I mean by this is that every choice is going to be kind of good, and it's going to be kind of bad. It's going to have challenges you couldn't have predicted, and it's going to have good things that you couldn't have predicted. And actually, and once you accept this reality, decision making becomes a lot easier. And just giving up your control over the choice, giving up your over, giving up your analytical thinking and your worrying by just going with your gut instinct, what's easiest, or if you can't tell, just common sense. You're giving up your control of the situation. And by doing that, you're pretty much taking the control back to yourself. So making decisions is never going to be super easy, and that's the point. We're not trying to eliminate discomfort here. We're just trying to move through it, even if it might not, even if we're not certain. But yeah, those are my three choices, my three skills that you can take. Obviously, this is one of my first few videos, so I'm not as cohesive as I'd like to be, and you might have had trouble keeping up with throughout it. But yeah, I hope you got something out of it.